You were the highest paid actor on television. You blew it up. What happened?
Got a little dicey there. It's possible.
Sure.
'Cause we're all still in the game.
Well, you've crawled out of some places that a lot of people wouldn't survive.
Thank you.
The cartel cut you off?
They had never seen someone acquiring that kind of weight.
For decades, Charlie Sheen seemed to have everything: fame, fortune, hit television shows, and a life that millions could only imagine. But behind the headlines and unforgettable performances was a painful story that few truly understood. Now, at 60, the full weight of his journey has become impossible to ignore. From personal battles to devastating losses and shocking setbacks, each chapter left a deeper mark than the last. So, what really happened to the man who once ruled Hollywood? His story is even more heartbreaking than many ever realized. The hidden pain behind addiction. For years, many assumed Charlie Sheen's battle with addiction was simply the result of fame, money, and the wild Hollywood lifestyle. But while promoting his memoir, The Book of Sheen, he revealed a much deeper and far more personal reason behind the struggle that nearly destroyed his life. According to Sheen, one of the biggest forces driving his addiction wasn't the pressure of being a celebrity. It was a speech disorder he had quietly battled since childhood. Sheen explained that he had lived with a stutter for most of his life, and speaking had often filled him with fear and anxiety. Every conversation, every interview, and every performance carried the worry that he might stumble over his words. For someone whose career depended on speaking confidently in front of millions of people, that hidden burden became exhausting. He admitted that alcohol initially seemed like the perfect escape. As he described it, drinking appeared to soften the edges, helping him relax, speak more freely, and feel like the confident person he wanted the world to see. But what started as a way to cope slowly became something much darker. What started as an occasional drink slowly became a decades-long addiction that hid another painful secret: Charlie Sheen's lifelong battle with stuttering. But in 2000, one courageous decision changed everything. By revealing the truth instead of hiding it, he discovered unexpected support and learned that real strength begins with asking for help. Sadly, alcohol wasn't the only addiction he faced. Sheen later admitted that he became heavily dependent on illegal substances, sending his life into an even deeper spiral. The addiction led to repeated stays in rehabilitation centers, public scandals, and heartbreaking moments for the people who loved him most. His father, actor Martin Sheen, along with other family members, organized several interventions in desperate attempts to save him. At the time, Charlie rejected those efforts and even viewed one intervention as a betrayal. Today, however, he sees those moments very differently. He now believes they were powerful acts of love from people who refused to give up on him. Even after making progress, the road wasn't smooth. Sheen has admitted that he suffered relapses, including during his time starring on 2.5 Men, when prescription medication pulled him back into addiction. But unlike previous setbacks, this time he eventually found the strength to rebuild his life. Since achieving sobriety in 2017, he says he has remained committed to living free from alcohol and other harmful substances. Looking back now, Sheen believes the biggest lesson from his journey is that real healing begins with honesty. Instead of hiding his fears and weaknesses, he now encourages others to speak openly, ask for help, and never believe they are beyond saving. More than anything, he hopes people will remember him not only as a successful actor, but also as a writer and survivor whose story proves that even after years of pain, failure, and addiction, it's never too late to start again. But who exactly is Charlie Sheen? How did he rise to become one of Hollywood's biggest stars? Let's find out. Charlie Sheen's rise before collapse. Before Charlie Sheen became one of the biggest names in Hollywood, there was no sign that his life would eventually become one of the industry's most heartbreaking stories. At the peak of his career, he wasn't just famous, he was untouchable. He had become the highest-paid actor on American television, earning an astonishing $1.8 million for every single episode he filmed. His face was everywhere. His career seemed unstoppable, and many believed he had everything a person could ever dream of. But behind the flashing cameras, the packed red carpets, and the enormous paychecks, a very different story was quietly unfolding. one that almost no one knew about. So, before Charlie Sheen became known for controversy, he was one of Hollywood's brightest stars. After unforgettable performances in Platoon and Wall Street, he rose to fame almost overnight, earning admiration for his talent, confidence, and undeniable screen presence. To the world, he appeared to have everything: success, wealth, and an unstoppable career. But behind the cameras, a very different story was unfolding. For 4 years, Sheen secretly lived with a life-changing medical diagnosis, hiding his private battle while continuing to smile, perform, and convince everyone that everything was perfectly fine. Long before fame, Charlie grew up in a disciplined Catholic home with his father, acclaimed actor Martin Sheen, and mother Janet Templeton. Inspired by acting, he and his brother Emilio made homemade films with friends, including future stars Rob Lowe and Sean Penn. Adopting the stage name Charlie Sheen, he forged his own identity while honoring his family's legacy. His rise was fast, exciting, and almost unbelievable. At just 20 years old, director Oliver Stone recognized his talent and cast him in Platoon, a role that changed everything. Soon afterward came Wall Street, proving that his first success had been no accident. Charlie quickly earned a reputation as fearless, charismatic, and completely committed to every performance. Ironically, those very qualities that made him such a captivating actor also seemed to shape the difficult chapters of his personal life. The same fearless drive, relentless ambition, and larger-than-life personality that helped him conquer Hollywood sometimes pushed him toward dangerous choices. Yet Charlie Sheen's story is about far more than fame, scandal, or public downfall. It is also a story of survival, resilience, and the difficult journey of rebuilding a life after years of pain, proving that even after the darkest chapters, a new beginning is still possible. At what point did Charlie's presence start commanding a fortune? Which movie marked the beginning of stardom for him? Stay with us. When fame couldn't hide pain. In 2003, Charlie Sheen stepped into the role of Charlie Harper on CBS's smash hit sitcom 2.5 Men. What made the character so unforgettable was that it didn't seem like Sheen was acting at all. Charlie Harper was witty, charming, carefree, and always living life on his own terms, the same image Charlie Sheen had built for himself in the public eye. That natural connection made audiences feel like they were watching the real Charlie, only with a laugh track added. So, for a while, Charlie Sheen seemed completely unstoppable. 2.5 Men became one of America's biggest television hits, attracting around 30 million viewers each week and turning its cast into global stars. As the show's success soared, so did Sheen's fortune, with reports claiming he earned an incredible $1.8 million per episode, making him one of the highest-paid actors on television. From the outside, it looked like he was living the ultimate Hollywood dream: wealth, fame, and endless success. But away from the cameras, a far darker reality was beginning to take shape, one that would eventually threaten everything he had built. Just as Charlie Sheen seemed to be reaching the very top of his career, his life away from the cameras was becoming far more complicated. Success on television brought him fame, fortune, and worldwide recognition. But behind the scenes, his personal relationships were facing constant challenges. In 2002, he married actress Denise Richards, and together they welcomed 2 daughters. For a while, they appeared to have built a happy family, but their marriage ended in a widely reported divorce in 2006. Hoping for a fresh start, Sheen married Brooke Mueller in 2008, and the couple welcomed twin sons the following year. However, that relationship also fell apart, ending in another high-profile divorce in 2011. As time passed, headlines about his private life often became just as captivating as news about his remarkable career. The headlines became impossible to ignore. Stories of legal troubles, tabloid controversies, substance abuse, and repeated stays in rehabilitation filled newspapers and entertainment programs. Yet somehow, whenever the cameras started rolling, Sheen continued delivering the sharp comedic performances that audiences loved. His professionalism helped keep 2.5 Men at the top of the ratings, even as his personal struggles became more intense behind the scenes. But eventually, the line between Charlie Harper and Charlie Sheen began to disappear. The carefree lifestyle that had once made the character so entertaining started to reflect the actor's real-life challenges in unsettling ways. The sitcom had become more than just a hit television series. It had also served as a protective shield, allowing Sheen's deeper struggles to remain hidden behind laughter and record-breaking ratings. Once that shield finally cracked, everything seemed to unravel with astonishing speed, transforming one of Hollywood's greatest success stories into one of its most shocking and heartbreaking public downfalls. So, when did his personal struggles affect his career the most? What price did he pay for that single effect? Stay glued when Charlie Sheen finally unraveled. In early 2011, Charlie Sheen wasn't just one of the biggest stars on television. He was the face of one of the most successful sitcoms ever made. But behind the scenes, his personal life was spinning out of control. After years of battling addiction and entering rehabilitation more than once, production on 2.5 Men was suddenly put on hold while he sought treatment again. At first, many believed he would recover and return to the show as he had before. Instead, what happened next became one of the most shocking celebrity stories Hollywood had ever seen. So instead of disappearing from the spotlight to rebuild his life, Charlie Sheen did something almost no one expected. He turned the chaos into an even bigger spectacle. He launched a series of explosive interviews, attacking 2.5 Men creator Chuck Lorre, while making bizarre claims that instantly grabbed global attention. Declaring he had tiger blood and Adonis DNA, he insisted he was unstoppable, and his repeated catchphrase, "winning," quickly became a worldwide pop culture phenomenon. Behind the viral headlines, Charlie Sheen's career was unraveling. In March 2011, he was fired from 2.5 Men and replaced by Ashton Kutcher. His Torpedo of Truth tour failed to revive his image, with walkouts and harsh reviews signaling his fading star power. Looking back today, the entire episode feels far less like the story of a rebellious star refusing to follow the rules, and much more like the story of a man quietly falling apart in front of the entire world. Behind the confidence, the jokes, and the bold statements was someone who had lost one of television's biggest jobs, experienced broken relationships, struggled with addiction for years, and carried emotional wounds that had never fully healed. The fearless public image he projected was, in many ways, hiding a much deeper personal battle. Years later, Charlie Sheen admitted that he had not been thinking clearly during that period of his life. He openly acknowledged that lasting change only began when he accepted responsibility for his actions and committed himself to genuine recovery. With time, the famous slogan of "winning" took on an entirely different meaning. Instead of representing strength or success, it came to symbolize a desperate attempt to cover deep pain with confidence. What millions of people had once watched as shocking celebrity entertainment now appears, through Sheen's own reflections, to have been the very public unraveling of a man who was struggling far more than anyone truly understood. So, what was another heartbreaking news that Charlie claimed to have been struggling with for so long? How has he been coping with it? Keep watching. The truth changed everything forever. On November 17, 2015, the Hollywood star sat down for a deeply personal interview on Today and revealed to the world that he had been living with HIV for about 4 years. It wasn't a confession made on impulse. According to Sheen, it came after years of emotional exhaustion, fear, and enormous pressure. He said he had spent millions of dollars paying people who threatened to expose his private medical condition, leaving him trapped in a cycle of silence and blackmail. Eventually, he decided that telling the truth himself was the only way to regain control of his life. The announcement immediately made headlines around the world. For many people, it was shocking. But Sheen's doctor also shared an important piece of information that changed the conversation. He confirmed that Sheen did not have AIDS and that modern HIV medication had successfully reduced the virus in his body to an undetectable level. With consistent treatment, the doctor explained, Sheen could continue living a long and healthy life. Still, the public revelation opened the door to a new wave of controversy. In the months and years that followed, several women accused Sheen of failing to tell them about his HIV status before sexual encounters. The allegations led to lawsuits, intense media attention, and financial settlements. including a reported $120,000 settlement reached in 2022. Sheen did not admit legal responsibility as part of that agreement, but the cases continued to shape public opinion. Even years later, critics argued that the 2025 documentary, aka Charlie Sheen, focused heavily on his personal struggles while giving too little attention to these serious accusations and the people affected by them. Yet behind all the headlines, another chapter of his life was quietly taking shape. In December 2017, far from television cameras and tabloid front pages, Sheen made a decision that would completely change his future. He committed himself to sobriety. Unlike the highly publicized chaos that had defined much of his earlier life, this transformation happened almost entirely out of the spotlight. There were no dramatic press conferences or carefully planned publicity campaigns. Instead, he simply focused on rebuilding himself, one day at a time. By the middle of 2026, he had remained sober for more than 8 years. Looking back, Sheen has said the biggest lesson he learned was that recovery is never a finish line. It is a daily choice. Rather than seeing treatment as something that would magically solve his problems, he began treating sobriety as the foundation for creating a better life. His journey remains complicated and, at times, deeply controversial. It includes painful mistakes, public criticism, legal battles, and personal accountability. But it also tells the story of a man who, after years of addiction, turmoil, and relentless public scrutiny, has continued trying to move forward and build a more stable future. Now, what has Charlie Sheen been up to in recent times? How has he been coping with life in his old age? Let's find out. Charlie Sheen's life after sobriety. Getting sober didn't suddenly bring back the life he once had. There was no fairy tale ending, no instant return to the top of Hollywood. Instead, what followed was something much harder, a slow, often painful process of rebuilding a life that had been deeply affected by years of personal struggles and difficult choices. For years, Sheen had been one of the highest-paid actors on television, earning millions during the peak of his career. It seemed like the money would never stop flowing. But behind the fame, his finances were gradually being drained by expensive divorces, legal battles, financial settlements, and the high cost of maintaining the reckless lifestyle that once made headlines around the world. By 2026, court records showed that he had agreed to pay significant overdue child support to his former wife, Brooke Mueller, a reminder that some responsibilities continue long after a marriage has ended. But money was only one part of the story. Charlie is also the father of 5 children from different chapters of his life, and he has openly admitted that becoming sober completely changed the way he sees fatherhood. Instead of living in constant chaos, he says he now makes a real effort to be present for his children. Some family relationships have slowly grown stronger with time, but not every broken bond has been repaired. Recovery, as Sheen himself has acknowledged, cannot erase the past. His former 2.5 Men co-star, John Cryer, has even revealed that the two have not spoken in years, showing that some friendships remain difficult to rebuild despite personal growth. What sobriety has given him, however, is something he says is even more valuable than fame. It has given him clarity. It has brought stability into a life that once seemed completely out of control. Sheen now describes his days as calm, structured, and remarkably consistent, a dramatic contrast to the unpredictable lifestyle that once defined his public image. Alongside that personal transformation, he continues receiving daily treatment for HIV. His doctors have confirmed that his condition remains well managed through medication, with an undetectable viral load that allows him to live a healthy and active life. Interestingly, Sheen refuses to call this chapter a comeback. He prefers to describe it as a reset. He knows there are still obstacles ahead, including ongoing legal responsibilities and continued public criticism surrounding his documentary and memoir. Rather than trying to become the man he once was, he says his focus is much simpler: to live each moment as it comes and make better choices than he did before. At 60, Charlie Sheen may no longer be the unstoppable Hollywood superstar many believed he would become forever. But perhaps his greatest achievement isn't reclaiming his old fame. It's remaining sober, accepting responsibility for his past, and continuing to move forward with honesty, resilience, and the quiet determination to face life one day at a time. So, what do you think about Charlie Sheen's heartbreaking tragedy? Does he seem to be in control of his struggles? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.